So it is the July 4th episode here of the Prevailing Narrative, and nothing could be more American than to bring in a British person, gloat about our victory, and kind of shove our dominance in their face. That British person is Jade Warwick. Jade, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So Jade, who are you? What do you do? What's your relevance to the American political economy?
Not very relevant at all, honestly.
I hear you're on some no-fly lists, perhaps?
That's how we're starting it off. Wonderful. Yeah, I was an actress and model for a few years, and then I kind of became too outspoken, got a little bit cancelled, and now I report the news and say offensive things on Instagram.
There we go. We'll try to go from a little bit canceled to hopefully entirely canceled, or at least, the whole thing they say about getting shot at and missed is kind of one of the most exhilarating things ever. I would apply that to cancellation without a doubt.
No, I'm aiming for the 10 and the 9 ring, honestly.
No doubt. Right in the blood and guts. Okay, so I'd say the most prominent issue in America right now is the end of the bromance between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, two forces of nature, two very impactful people who seem to be in a really productive alliance it was only about 6 months, but it seemed like, to have the force of Elon Musk behind the Donald Trump agenda was really positive, was going to lead to a lot of productivity, bringing one of the most effective members of the private sector into the public sector. Those two appear to be on the outs. We'll get into some of the specifics of their most recent spat this week. But, when you take a look at it, what do you think happened to the Elon-Trump bromance?
I mean, I hate it when mummy and daddy fight, honestly, but I just feel as if you had battle of the egos, and that's totally fine. If you're going to run multiple companies and if you're going to run the country, they're going to lock horns at some point, and unfortunately they couldn't work it out. But
that is unfortunate, but people say it is the battle of the egos, but people with big egos have gotten along before. And getting into some of the specifics of why the Elon heel turn, let's say, if you are taking it from the perspective of the MAGA world, it seems, and I think, first up, I think that Elon Musk was totally genuine about his desire to participate in government, to cut spending, to solve the American debt crisis, and to do whatever he could to do that. I don't think he acted with the most discipline in doing that, both in his activities with Doge right off the bat in the first couple months of the Trump administration, and two, just in how he handled, maybe this is a little more of the ego piece of this, but how he handled the relationship in public relations. I mean, the whole thing about, first of all, he doesn't have any evidence about Donald Trump being on the Epstein list, and no such list exists in the first place. But yeah, you're being very selfish in trying to pick a battle like that out of ego. You're clearly not putting the country first. However, a lot of this seems to be about and stem from Elon's frustration that he believes that there's no bigger issue, no more pressing issue in American society than the debt, cutting spending, and he thinks that all his efforts were kind of disrespected and disregarded because Trump is now championing this bill that doesn't take the debt and cut spending as seriously as Elon believes they should. I don't know. What do you see from that perspective?
I mean, yes, I think Elon has wonderful intentions. It's just the way he went about it was a little intense for half the country, I'd say. Most of us were on board, we want our tax dollars going to the right things. And I mean, if you look at the spending, wasn't there like a Sesame Street funding in the Middle East, and our tax very
well, sure. Well, with USAID, there are obviously a number of absurdities in terms of what the types of foreign aid that we were funding, and that was kind of one of these things that they were rounding errors in the budget that $30 million here, $150 million there, and while everybody that can get lost in a $16 trillion economy and whatnot. But I think some of the criticism of Elon was that, okay, sounds good, but if all you're doing is cutting these little pet weird woke social engineering programs, God knows what, in Bangladesh, Sesame Street, Bangladesh or whatnot, you're not really going to make a dent in the debt. And, and that kind of traces back to where I think he's got his entire philosophy about this, or at least his main thesis is incorrect, in that at the end of the day, the problem with the budget is military spending, Medicare and Medicaid, and Social Security. And Elon, and as I'll get to a quote of his in a second, believes that he's championing the people, but he's got to understand that the people are the ones who vote for this stuff. The reasons you can't cut Social Security, the reason you can't cut Medicare, the reason you can't cut the military is because the people want it, right? And what did Elon say? He said in kind of threatening that he's going to start a third party, it's obvious that the insane spending of this bill, the one big beautiful bill, increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country. I'll get into what I think is flawed about that reasoning, because the Porky Pig Party, time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. Okay, But once again, the reason you have all this spending is because the people don't want to let go of their handouts, right? It's just it's the reality. Like you tell people, okay, we're going to bump the starting age for Social Security from 65 to 68, and everybody loses their mind. And it seems that he's got a misattribution problem in terms of who the problem is, and unfortunately, it kind of is the people.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't want people abusing the system, and unfortunately, we have a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, but even, I guess the thing is, and what we've seen is even if you take the abuse out, that's really also a rounding error. It seems like until Americans are willing to, accept a reduced military that might not be able to fight 2, 3 wars at the same time and doesn't have all these cool, fancy weapons, until Americans are willing to put off retirement for a couple more years until they get Social Security and not, hey, sorry, you might have to, not get Medicare until age 70 as opposed to age 65. Until they're willing to make those sacrifices, it doesn't seem like you're going to get the spending, America's spending problem under control.
Well, I don't think they're actually going to cut the Medicaid. Is that right? They're just going to reduce the.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll get to that in terms of the specifics of what's proposed with the bill. One big beautiful bill. Like you can't talk about it without, you can't say that without sounding very Trumpish, because it's kind of absurd to describe it that way.
I apologize.
Yes, but and I'm talking philosophically. It just seems that like you could say that, oh, the politicians are being greedy, the politicians are getting all this pork spending, but the reality is that the politicians do this because the people will vote against them if they cut the cord. If the politicians reduce some of these outlays and some of these giveaways, the people are going to vote them out.
That's exactly right.
I'm glad you agree with me on that.
I do agree with you. One thing about the Epstein files I just wanted to talk about.
Sounds good. Always a nice detour to the Epstein files.
So funny how he was like, oh, Trump's in the Epstein files, yet he let Trump have one-on-one time with his child. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's autistic is as autistic does. Certainly, I think it's all speculation. Elon, one of his lesser qualities is he likes to speculate based on insinuation. And as I've said on my podcast a number of times, like the idea that these people were so shrewd and brilliant that they were able to organize and orchestrate a blackmail ring of the world's most powerful people, and yet they kept a nice little ledger, a list of like, oh, here are the people that we set up with hookers and who banged hookers on Epstein Island, is just completely beyond ridiculous. And I think it's just more cinematic to believe that there's some list out there, and even more cinematic to believe that Donald Trump is on it. But Trump seems to be going after him. I mean, he's not really pulling any punches and responding. He even threatened Elon with a pulling of some credits from his programs. He says, Elon Musk knew long before he strongly endorsed me for president that I was strongly against the EV mandate. It is ridiculous and was always a major part of my campaign. Electric cars are fine, but not everyone should be forced to own one. Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back to home to South Africa. No more rocket launches, satellites. Perhaps we should have Doge take a good hard look into that. It's pretty aggressive.
He's pretty aggressive. I think he joked about deporting Elon too. I think Trump's just all talk sometimes.
Is he all talk or partial talk?
Sometimes, just for entertainment value, and I appreciate that.
No doubt, as do we all. I mean, do you get this much entertainment from British politicians when you're watching like the House of Commons on C-SPAN? Does it ever get quite this lively?
Honestly, yes. Have you seen their debates?
I try. Anytime I'm in the UK, for some reason, I want to get as British as possible. So sometimes I do. There's one guy named Lord Quigley who's always captivating to me. I don't know. I haven't seen Lord Quigley in a while, however.
And Boris Johnson, he says the most incredible.
Yeah, but he's like too much of a slob.
He is, but that's entertaining.
Fair enough. Why did the Brits turn against Boris Johnson?
Honestly, I just feel like we were fed up with not getting to where we wanted to be.
In what?
So we had the Brexit issue,
Sure.
and that was definitely the general public locking horns on that too. Some of us wanted to be very independent. Some of us wanted to stay with Europe. And between Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, things were not getting done, and we're just tired of it. It's like, come on, let's get someone who will actually.
So apparently, since Brexit, immigration to the UK has actually gone up. How did that happen?
I mean, it all started with Angela Merkel from Germany, and she thought it would be a great idea to just open the borders of Europe. So we all followed suit, I think, because of white guilt and colonizer guilt, which I think I just made up on the.
You're just dripping with as well, of course.
Sure. And so we have just been letting people in on asylum bases and saying, look, they're fleeing war zones. Great. But the majority of people that come in are military-aged men. If you want to let women and children in, like, I'm a little bit more lenient with that. But
I don't know why, but okay.
I'm sorry, but at some point, you have to look at who's coming in and say this looks like more of an invasion.
Certainly, but the Merkel let's let in a million Syrians was, I think, either 2014 or 15. Brexit was passed in 2016. I don't think it was implemented even until probably a few years later than 2019, 2020. So I don't know, I guess it's a mystery, one of those, one of the most counterintuitive things possible, that since they tried to implement Brexit, went back to the British pound, no more, no more euro, all of that, that more people from more non-British people have now come to the UK. So maybe Boris Johnson, I don't know if he was a double agent, as you surely are, but we'll have to see. One could only fathom what has caused more immigration to the UK.
I swear on the Bible, I'm not a spy.
No doubt, no doubt. So Elon has threatened to start a third party called the American Party. It's very fashionable to say, oh, wait, the two parties are failing us. Screw it, we need a third party. That's really the single point of failure, is that we only have two parties in America. We need a third party, and that's the solution. I will admit that I believe any third party will be an abysmal failure. We are in a winner-take-all political system. It's not a parliamentary system like the UK or most European countries, where you might get two or three. There's 6 or 7 different parties.
I thought there was a third party in America.
Not any third party that gets any meaningful amount of votes consistently. No. If you're looking at it, smart commentators that I follow, like Mike Cernovich, and they look at it and say, really all you're doing, if you're trying to go after the people who you believe didn't live up to promises about cutting spending, well, the politicians that made cutting spending, part of their platform are going to be generally Republican. So you're mostly going to go after Republicans who simply did not live up to their proclamations as much as you would have liked, as opposed to going after Democrats who never even said they wanted to cut spending. They're happy to let spending continue unabated. So I mean, Cernovich's assertion, and I think he's correct, is that all you're going to do is get a President AOC elected, because you're just going to get a bunch of Republican voters mutinying against other Republicans. It's not going to affect the Democrats at all. I don't know. What do you think?
Voting for AOC now? Well, that's going to be wonderful.
The idea being, there's already going to be some people who are obviously emotionally stunted and whatnot who will vote for AOC, and that in a normal election, that she would lose. She would be beaten by a Republican. But if you try to kamikaze the Republicans by starting a third party that's to appeal to most people who are Republican voters, all you're going to do is slice off 12, 15% of Republicans who won't vote for the Republican challenger, and then the Democrats are just going to vote for AOC and she'll win by default.
Yeah, the MAGA movement is so intense right now. They're not going to turn on their own party for a new one. And I don't even think that Elon can start one as a foreigner, can he?
I believe, well, he certainly could support it. I don't think he could be the candidate for it, but in terms of being a financier, organizer, administrator, there's a number of ways for him to try to stand that up. But I don't know. I think this is kind of a pipe dream. It's something that sounds good. Oh, great, let's have a third party. It's usually more cannibalistic than it is helpful. And hopefully this is something that he simply loses interest in over the next couple of days. Or who knows, he even made a somewhat conciliatory comment about Donald Trump on Twitter yesterday, in terms of Trump helping end some wars, even though these wars keep on not ending. So who knows? Maybe he'll just move on, or maybe he's got a new baby mama's going to pop up and we'll distract him from this ill-conceived venture.
I think he has a lot of baby mamas that we don't know about.
How many? What if you were to guess how many baby mamas we don't know about? What would your guess be?
Oh goodness. I mean, I just feel as if maybe he's allowed to see all the genetic results from 20.
Got it. Are you trying to subtly, in a British way, reveal that you know some of these baby mamas?
No, I'm just saying, if he wants to colonize Mars, wouldn't he go on like 23andMe and look for the people with the perfect genetics and be like, right, impregnate that one?
How do you know he's not already doing it? Yeah, possibly. But then Grimes is the counterexample to that. Like, if you're impregnating Grimes, you're certainly not looking for genetic perfection.
On Earth, but maybe for Mars, he's got a different system.
Got it. Yeah, she could be. If your standard is a strange alien-like figure, perhaps she is the figure. Yeah, no doubt. So I think, I gotta be. Historically, I've been a bigger fan of Elon, and Donald Trump. I respect some of what he's done and his objectives, but it's been I certainly have my criticisms, but I think Elon is in the wrong here. I think he's being completely unrealistic. He just doesn't. He believes that he can replicate the private sector. Oh, great. I want to go cut 70% of my expense structure. Great. I could just go do that over the weekend. It's unfortunately not how things work in government. I think he needs to acclimate to that.
Yeah, he's a genius, but it doesn't mean he has great social skills.
Well, would you say it's social skills or just an unrealistic view of how government operates?
Well, I mean, if you're going on social media and talking that much crap, you're probably not having the best skills.
I don't know. I go on social media and talk an enormous amount of crap, and I'd like to believe I'm less autistic than Elon, but who knows? That's it for everybody else's. Everybody else can have their opinion.
We'll ask RFKJ about Junior about your autism levels.
Got it. All right. Well, I don't know. I thought autism is either a yes or a no. I didn't know that it's a
The
kind
spectrum.
It's a light dimmer. I don't know.
That's what they tell me.
Who's they? Exactly. Okay. Moving on. So now to the substance of this one big beautiful bill, which I believe they're getting close to passing. It's been a grind, and it's interesting because theoretically Trump could have approached things less ambitiously. He's really trying to jam an enormous amount of legislation into this one big beautiful bill.
Massive.
Any observations that you've seen in terms of what might be good arguments for or against?
No, I honestly think it should have been split up into several different bills, because trying to pass that much in one bill, you're never going to please everyone. So it just seemed like it was going to fail from the start.
Possibly, but you could also make the argument that even smaller bills are difficult to get everybody on board. And Trump, one of his approaches is, my gravity is so powerful that I can convince, he can manifest or engineer his results no matter what. And I've only got 4 years. I've got an ambitious agenda. And so if I can somehow get this to 50+1 or, get that tiebreaker vote with J.D. Vance, I should attack as many issues as possible. I mean, there's way too much in the big OBB or whatever the hell they're calling it. Yeah, the BB. There's way too much in the BBL for us to attack. So just a couple items that seem to be getting the most attention. The one that Elon is focusing on the most is the debt ceiling, and that the bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. And his argument is, well, okay, what the hell did you hire me to do to cut all these costs if you're just going to go ahead and raise the debt ceiling? The counter argument, which I actually believe is correct because it's being propagated by so many people who do clearly care about cutting spending and reining in, out of control government, is, wait a second, the debt, we were going to have to renegotiate the debt ceiling anyways, because we have so many costs that are already slated to keep on increasing. And if we don't do that now, it's going to have to be increased later on. And we have bills that we can't get out of. And even if we can rein in spending right now and cut some costs, we still are going to have to raise the debt ceiling. So I find that to be a persuasive argument.
Can't argue with that. Plus, your IQ is like twice mine, so really can't argue with that.
Fair enough. Or maybe you can't argue with that because it's correct. You never know.
You never know. But there have been some revisions, so I think maybe Trump planned that,
Trump, possibly, sometimes it's like throw in so many nude scenes and fucks in a movie that if you cut a few, you still get the R rating instead of the NC-17. Yes, no doubt. That's the reasoning I would go with. Absolutely. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he says that this bill cuts $1.6 trillion in mandatory spending. So even though the Office of Budgetary Management says that this bill will result in a $3.3 trillion increase in the debt over the next 10 years, you kind of have to judge that marginally. It's like, okay, if we did nothing, how much would the debt increase? And from the do nothing scenario to this scenario, I actually don't think it increases the debt that much, which is why Scott Bessent can point to $1.6 trillion in spending cuts. And then a lot of this is border security. I mean, it's Trump's signature issue, and a lot of the new spending appears to be not just, not just funding Sesame Street Bangladesh, but actually funding resources, building the border wall, and funding, you've got to fund these deportations, some way, somehow, to house the illegal immigrants and the law enforcement officers that you need to get rid of them.
Have you seen Alligator Alcatraz?
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about Alligator Alcatraz?
Apparently
and when you plan on visiting?
Ooh, I'll have a lot of fun if I visit there. I was going to make a Bonnie Blue joke, but that would have been
No,
terrible.
I was expecting
Okay.
the over/under was on 6.5 Bonnie Blue jokes from you, so you need to pick up some slack.
Apparently, it's surrounded by alligators, what was it, boa constrictors and mosquitoes, which sounds like a very horrible time. So if you do end up there, it's kind of on you. Good luck.
No doubt. Well, who's it supposed to be? I haven't been following this one too much. Is it supposed to be for only, truly violent, deranged criminals, or is it just we're going to start pouring people into this alligator Alcatraz if they happen to be in Florida and like run a mortgage fraud scam or something like that?
No, I think Trump would respect that, honestly. I think that Tom Holman said it was for the worst of the worst. And I'm going to believe them on that.
Got it. Tom, until proven otherwise, I'm going with that. So we do have 46.5 billion to build the border wall. Finally, a decade later, 45 billion to expand detention capacity, 30 billion to hire and train other ICE enforcement officers, things of that nature. So I'm going to go. I think we can justify quite a bit of the spending in this one big, beautiful bill. You seem to at least intimate earlier that you don't think it's going to pass, that it was too ambitious, but I don't know. Right now, as it's sitting, gun to your head, if you're wrong, you get sent into alligator Alcatraz.
I'm saying the first draft, of course, they're going to revise it and cut some things out of that, but.
Got it. Okay. All right. I think we're all poly market. I think we're no doubt. The smart money is on the BBL, OBB passing. Okay. So something obviously just to take it from accusations of Epstein Island to something even more perverted. P Diddy, the P Diddy trial, finally, the verdict came out today. I can admit to being a little wrong, not entirely wrong, but I was a little wrong on this. I thought they were going to get him on some more significant. First off, so Puff Daddy Sean Combs, he was cleared on the highest intensity charges, sex trafficking, racketeering. He was convicted on a couple prostitution charges, crossing state lines, flying prostitutes across state lines. These are both felonies, right? So everyone seems to think because he escaped the most severe allegations that he's not going to go to jail. I don't think that's the case. I mean, he still got 20 years. The maximum is 20 years. Smart people that I know who have experience in criminal law say you could probably aim anywhere from 24 to 50 months is probably what he's looking at now. On the one hand, he has no prior convictions, but he's been accused before, and it's not like there wasn't evidence that he was guilty of the other charges, just that I don't think the prosecution was able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So, and also word that just came down, even though he was cleared of the most severe charges, bail was still denied. The judge, typically in these types of situations, or at least maybe not universally, but often a judge, once you're cleared of the more severe charges and you're on, okay, some of the lesser charges you got convicted, okay, great, you can go back home until we sentence you. The judge denied bail, so I'm pretty confident the judge is going to get him on at least some jail time.
No, of course. I mean, how can you argue with that footage from the hotel?
But that's not what he was convicted of. No, well, that's an interesting point, and why I thought he was going to go down for more severe charges is that people are people. You can try to say that they're going to adhere to the law and only judge or rule based on whether or not these specifically charged crimes were proven. But at some point, people are people, and when they see someone engaged in a lot of bad behavior, they want to punish them. So I think that's why I'm a little, the jurors probably even said like, okay, we can't not get him. We have to get him on something. The racketeering, the sex trafficking, and I think they were wrong on the sex trafficking because technically people, as I've said before on prior podcasts, have the wrong idea about what sex trafficking is. But I think they're going to get him for at least a few years.
Okay, I agree with you.
Yeah, what do you think of just, how much of Puff Daddy supporters that are going and dousing each other with baby oil in the streets outside the courthouse right now, which is actually happening?
Is it?
No, that is absolutely happening. Sean Combs' supporters they're having a baby oil party. Just irony is dead in their eyes.
You're messing with me.
I wish I was, and I wish even more now that he had gone down, because anyone who's got supporters this ridiculous deserves to be punished. But yes, no, it's the baby oil factor was not going to not factor into this.
God, okay, we should probably factor that into the big, beautiful bill. Ban baby oil.
Huh? Can we ban baby? Maybe we need to subsidize it just for the right people. I mean, I don't know. Everyone's slipping and sliding outside courthouses in Lower Manhattan. So now into some of the conspiracies. And people wondering, well, oh, okay, of course he got off because this, some people suggesting that this prosecution was just a smokescreen for the government to go and get a bunch of tapes from his house, and they didn't really mean to go prosecute him in the first place. I'll give you my thoughts on that in a second, but what do you put into some of the theories that this was a sham prosecution to begin with, and it was just an excuse to go raid his houses and get tapes of other more important members of society that he had on videotape?
I love a good conspiracy, but there are stronger ones than that. I think
Right.
that truly he is a horrendous person, and at some point, bad people have to go down, and that's what happened.
Sure, but it doesn't seem that he really went down. But
Not yet.
well, just the idea that he had all these supposedly more powerful people, even though if you had to look in America, how many, you could probably count on, at most two hands, how many people are truly more powerful than a billionaire music mogul.
So are we saying he's blackmailing certain people to get him out of
No,
going to prison?
their suggestion is that he had materials and tapes on people even above him in this eyes wide shut, orgy power hierarchy, right? And that the government raided his house to go get those tapes and destroy them, and that was just this entire prosecution was a smoke. Oh, you'd be shocked how many people are peddling this bullshit on the internet right now. And just sitting there thinking, he was going to sit there and not reveal these tapes. Like, they were trying to send him to jail for 50 years, right? So he was going to cover for these people, not expose this, not mention that, or say like, hey, I'm going to cut a deal by, listen, I'm going to reveal that these people were on these tapes unless you give me a better deal, that type of thing. The logic just doesn't hold. I find no sense whatsoever.
Okay, so we put that to bed. They're wrong. Wrong.
Yeah, it's not going to stop them from continuing to yap. They're going to yap till the cows come home.
What's your favorite conspiracy?
Ever? I mean, my favorite conspiracy that is true actually is that Stevie Wonder is not blind.
Okay, I did just watch a video of him catching a microphone.
Yeah, there you go.
Wild.
Everybody go Google, I think it's Stevie Wonder Truther or Stevie Wonder Not Blind. And I just happened upon this a few years ago. And you're like, yeah, it's Stevie Wonder. Everybody knows he's blind, right? Why he is so elevated. It's like, okay, he's this good of a musician and he's freaking blind. He can't even see the piano, apparently. So then I saw there's a compilation of materials about him, how he can actually see. And there's one video where he's singing along and there's a whole orchestra, like a 20-piece band behind him. And it's very loud, right? I don't care how good your hearing is from, sharpening your hearing skills because you can't see, but somebody knocks over a microphone and he catches it. Right, and the chances a blind person can do that are somewhere 1 in 7 billion.
Yeah, honestly, I can see, and I probably wouldn't have.
No chance your reflexes were going to be sharp enough to definitely
There's no way.
All that bad British diet is clearly it's dulled the senses to go and catch that microphone.
That's exactly right.
And then so I posted that on social media on Instagram, and then I kid you not, at least a dozen people who follow me, some who I know, some who I don't know, hopped in and were like, oh yeah, they'd have a story like, yeah, my aunt met Stevie Wonder in like 1986 or whatever, and he was like, hey, you have nice freckles or something, or like, yeah, tons of people have stories about Stevie Wonder giving away evidence that he actually can see.
So he's not been blind for a really long time.
I think he's probably one of those things where it's like, here's the threshold to be considered technically blind, and he's like right there just above it, but he's not actually blind.
Do you think he does it to like stare at girls' boobs and they're like, oh, well, he's not really looking, he's just blind?
No, it would be that would be more noble than whatever other reason he's lying about it for, like to just get more credibility for playing the piano. I was like, sorry bro, you can see the piano. I'm not that impressed anymore.
100%.
Yeah, all those Grammys out the window. So that is my favorite conspiracy. But now if we want to talk about musicians up to hijinks and whatnot, little even going more into your territory, into the Glastonbury Festival. I don't know who was watching that or observing or has been keen to this controversy the last few days.
I forgot Glastonbury even was a thing.
Yeah, right. I'm sure it's the B team. It's the Bonnaroo B-Team Festival of the British Isles, I'm sure.
Like, who wants to be in a muddy field on drugs listening to shitty music?
I have quite a few people and have for a long time, not posh types like yourself. But apparently a musician, I guess their D-list would be generous. I'd say more like K-list.
It was Bob Villain, and then Kneecap.
What a weak, limp pun that is.
But Kneecap is the other band.
Kneecap is the other one.
It's insane.
Okay, so
it's like you've known of the band Elbow?
Yeah.
It's like they just went, oh, let's do another one, kneecap.
Yeah,
It's stupid.
They're looking for, definitely some of the least attractive parts of the body, which would suit them because they're Irish. All right, so Kneecap is these white boy rappers, and they got very pro-Palestine. They brought out the kind of fuck Israel sign
They said up Hamas, up
Coachella.
Hezbollah.
Yeah, and they fashioned themselves to be rebellious, who were the Sex Pistols, or one of these other or the Clash, one of these punk, really rebellious, irreverent bands.
But they had good music. But they actually had good music.
Certainly, and I would not imagine Kneecap has any musical talent whatsoever, but they've made pro-Palestine, fuck Israel part of their shtick. They were performing at Glastonbury, but the Glastonbury organizers made it pretty clear, like, hey, no screwing around, none of your political shtick here. And the BBC didn't even broadcast the Kneecap performance there. Then this other, who the fuck listens to this guy, Bob Villain, got very aggressive pro-Palestine. You see out this is a music festival where you would see tons of Palestinian flags being waved in the crowd, one. And two, Bob Villain starts chanting, death, death to the IDF. And they got quite a few people in the audience to sing along.
I believe the BBC actually did broadcast it live.
They did. Now that they seem to be walking that back, and they said, we didn't know, we were unaware that this guy got political like that, and, mea culpa. But can you, give us any insight into these strange, really inexplicable, both British and European sensitivity or affection for the Gaza cause, one, and how, like, members, if you want to be counterculture, if you want to be rebellious and punk rock in the European artist community, you have to adopt the Palestinian cause as one of your pet causes and get very vocal about it. What was this, some more holdover colonial guilt, or, what's going on there?
It's definitely colonizer guilt and white guilt. But I'm just saying, if you're going to be punk rock, don't do the most popular thing in the world right now. What, you're going to chant with everyone else? How are you being, like, against the mainstream? You're the mainstream now. Not very punk rock of you.
That's certainly one perspective.
You're a move, Kneecap.
That would certainly be one perspective. Another perspective would be that those in power, that the Israelis are on the front side of the power dynamic here, and the elites or those in power are aligned with that. And the Palestinian cause is the scrappy underdog insurgent cause, and that is always going to align with something that is rebellious and punk rock. I think that's a complete fantasy, but I'm sure that's what these people tell themselves.
No, it's just very interesting how the BBC can air live chants that say death, death to the IDF. And that's totally fine. You can just, go out wishing for the death of strangers and large groups of people.
Sure.
But if you want to pray silently in the UK, you're going to get arrested.
Has that been happening, and under what auspices?
So Adam Smith Connor, Isabel Vaughan Spruce, and Father Sean Go, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, they were all arrested for silent prayer in the United Kingdom, near or within the vicinity of an abortion clinic.
Got it.
And
were they
that's
trespassing, or just?
No, they were just.
The UK is just looking to arrest people they stuck in their craw.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
No doubt.
In it.
In it seems to be your, what Don't Have a Cowman was to Bart Simpson. That I find the cultural milieu currently in the EU to be very strange. Yeah, that this, for some reason, this is how you get punk rock credibility right now, by being anti-Israel and pro-Palestine. I guess, based on that dynamic that we just described about the supposed oppressor oppressed and who's powerful and who's not, I guess it makes sense if people are really trying to fill a void in their life by, adopting a fake righteous cause.
Yeah, it just seems like everyone's over emotional and they're not looking at the facts, and that's the
problem. What
problem.
would be the facts here?
The facts would be, there's a war going on and we shouldn't wish death upon anyone. It's horrendous, and 20 years ago, I don't think the majority of the world would be chanting death to a certain party.
Yeah, even, the UK was not quite this sympathetic to the Palestinian cause 10, 15 years ago, I must imagine.
No, not at all. But, the problem is in the UK is, yes, we have white guilt and among other things. If someone says, oh, well, don't say that, that sounds racist, you just get this feeling of, okay, you got to keep quiet, keep calm, carry on, stiff upper lip. Just don't stand out, just blend in. And that's the British people's problem. And the reason why, I fully believe, is all the people that have balls left and made America.
But they left and made America quite a while ago, right? It's not new. So,
but you've got the rest of them breeding.
Sure, but someone, you have to look at what the starting point was, right? So what are the variables? What are the new variables that were injected that brought us from wherever we were in 2007 to 2025? And I think those are the more interesting dynamics to look at. Has there been truly that much of a jump in third world immigration to the EU, to the UK over the last 15 to 20 years that simply you haven't, the UK was what, at worst 92% Caucasian through like the year 2000, and now it's something like 73. Has the immigration and the changing demographics been that extreme over the past 10, 15 years?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I left the UK 8 years ago, and I go back every 6 months, give or take, a month or two. And it's kind of like the frog in a pot of boiling water. So if you're sat in it, obviously it's going to be warmer and you're going to get used to it and adjust to the temperature. And that's what the British people are doing. Whereas I come back every 6 months and I'm like, ooh, this looks different. This feels different.
It's so gradual they can't see it.
No, and I'm there going like, guys, this doesn't seem right. And they're like, oh, we can't say anything. It's like, well, come on, guys.
Yeah, even if there's.
We used to run the entire world.
I know. It's like, where's the colonizer braggadocio? Where's the assertion? Like, come on. How did you guys conquer 50% of the world being so? The men in the British Isles are like so physically unintimidating. It's very strange. I was about to say, but this was even put in stark contrast recently when I was in Sweden, and I was like, wait a second, you have all these like physically dominant, Scandinavian cultures that didn't do any colonizing. Like, who was a Norwegian colony? Who was a Swedish colony? And then the British just decided to go and conquer everybody.
I mean, we had the Vikings. They were pretty cool.
Yeah, but they didn't do any colonizing. Go look at the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century. What was a Swedish colony?
True. All right, you got me there.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't have an answer either. So I'm saying this could be a rhetorical question, food for thought to our audience. And so there was a lot of the controversy was not about competitors, but about the other female swimmers on the team that were forced to change with this person who's clearly a man in the team locker room. And now, Donald Trump and the Trump administration came in and said, well, okay, we have what's called Title IX. We have a number of regulations that try to protect women in college sports. And well, wait a second. Clearly, the Biden administration and the University of Pennsylvania in forcing these women, these females, to change naked with this person who's clearly a man, we're not looking out and not protecting these women. So that might be a Title IX violation, and we're going to go after them and picking one of the many fights that the Trump administration has rightfully picked. And they were going after Penn. What do we got here? The Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Craig Traynor, said at the time Penn could face financial consequences if they don't comply. That meaning to relegate all locker rooms only to single-sex spaces, no recently transitioned or partially transitioned people with penises dressing in the women's locker room, and they were going to withhold $1 billion in federal funds. And the University of Pennsylvania has caved. They have agreed that no men or former men will be competing or will be on a women's sports team. Everybody is going to be based, sex is going to be based on birth gender. And apparently, and they also had to go ahead, and the Trump administration, I love this cherry on top of the sundae, required that the school apologize to all of the women on the team that were forced to change with this man. Do you think this is a sea change? Do you think this is the nail in the coffin, that this is going to signal that generally everybody who trafficked in this weird fantasy during the late 2010s and early 2020s about, having men compete in women's sports, is the Trump administration, is this going to have a blast radius, or are we going to just have to keep on picking this fight over and over again as other universities try to do this nonsense?
I really hope it's a domino effect, because as a woman, I'm not comfortable changing with men around. I don't care whether you are passable like a Thai ladyboy who looks like a fire 10, I'll give them that. But unfortunately, most of them don't look like that. They look like a man in a dress. You look like Eddie Izzard. I'm not comfortable getting naked in front of you. So I feel as if more women speak up about this, it might actually have a long-term effect.
Got it. If you could appoint J.K. Rowling to be like goddess emperor of the universe, would you do so? No doubt. No, I mean, I can't say that I'm as much of a Harry Potter fan as I've gathered you are. But
do you see my Hagrid hair, Matt? My Hagrid hair?
I don't even know the reference. But JK, I imagine that you align heavily with her views on this issue, and how vocal she has been about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about common sense at the end of the day.
Not so common these days.
No, common sense is not common these days, especially in places like Seattle and Portland,
And you've done some time in Seattle and Portland recently.
I did.
Is it the woke hellhole that we hear about, or is it just much like downtown LA, just getting bad publicity.
No, I feel like a vet, honestly, with PTSD. Seattle is one of the weirdest places in the world. It really is.
How so?
You walk down the street and you got people with blue hair, green hair. They're screaming, you know, all sex is rape. I'm just like, what is going on here? What happened? What's in the water
So
supply?
you've got a problem with them speaking uncomfortable truths, is what you're saying? No, I'm joking.
Oh my God. But it's also interesting how it's like the main area for serial killers too. Just put that
Really?
up.
I thought it was Wisconsin. Wisconsin's got
Seattle had-
Dahmer. It's got, I think, John Wayne Gacy, Ed Gein. Wisconsin
Ted
was really the
Bundy,
feeder system of the
Green
good
River.
serial killers. Was that?
Ted Bundy, Green River Killer.
Got it. Okay, fair enough.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, Bundy's a good one.
maybe
Also.
there's something about that. It's in the water supply.
That could be it. You ever seen a little movie called, what was it? It was Kiefer Sutherland, not The Shining. The Vanishing. The Vanishing. Yes, based on a French movie that had a far more depressing ending. But Kiefer Sutherland, his girlfriend, gets kidnapped. You know, his girlfriend goes to, they're on like a rest stop in Seattle or outside Seattle. She goes to get, played by a young Sandra Bullock. Yeah, I think her first role pre-Speed. And she disappears and he is just obsessed and, you know, has a pathology. He can't let go of like what happened to my girlfriend for like 3 or 4 years. Finally, you know, the guy, Jeff Bridges, Jeff Bridges, not Jeff, the dude, the Big Lebowski, plays the killer. And then he comes back to kind of tease him and kind of mentally screw with him about, you know, here's, if you want to, you have to follow my path to find out what I did to your girlfriend. Of course, yeah, no, curiosity killed the cat. I won't give away too much of the ending, but however dark it was, the French version that it was based on was far darker. So,
Of course, it's a French movie. Of course, it's going to be depressing.
without a doubt.
My goodness.
No doubt. No, so that does support your Seattle thesis. This is true.
Thank you.
For sure.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
No doubt. Last item we wanted to talk about last week, some pretty significant Supreme Court rulings came down, as people may have gathered by now, since they now pay attention to Supreme Court rulings. The Supreme Court releases their rulings in batches. They might hear one case in January, they hear another case in April, and then they release all of the rulings and, you know, the pronouncements in June or July. This was Mahmoud versus Taylor. So what this was about was whether or not parents can opt out of LGBTQ or other raunchy or sex-oriented curriculum and classes for their kids, or whether they are a school can require that they keep, you know, maintain the kids or not opt out of that curriculum and those teachings. You've done some research on this ruling here. What do you think about how the Supreme Court ruled?
Well, I think it is up to the parents, because at the end of the day, you're going to have your own religion within your household, and potentially that curriculum is not going to align with your religion, and it is up to you to raise your children the way you want to raise them. For example, there's a book called Gender Queer.
Oh yeah.
A memoir by, what was it, Mamia Kobabe or something. And it's a picture book for children that depicts, can I say fellatio?
You
Fellatio.
can't not.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And other, you know, sexual acts. And it was being taught to children, actually in Seattle as well. And it's straight up porn.
Yeah, no, this is something, there was a bit of a pseudo witch hunt and hysteria around supposed conservative book banning, and people are trying to pretend like the, you know, Republican conservative parents in 2022 were trying to ban To Kill a Mockingbird or Catcher in the Rye, and then you go look and it's like, oh wait, the books are trying to ban have graphic depictions of gay sex like gender queer, and have this weird strange gender pathology about being a gender fluidity. And yeah, and this was a pretty landmark case on whether or not parents have the ultimate authority to hold their kids out from any lessons or curriculum that have those teachings.
Listen, if I grow a child within me, I'm going to make sure it's learning the things I want it to learn.
Sure.
You didn't birth it.
Well, yeah,
my choice.
that's a aggressive case for homeschooling, you know.
Oh, I'm
sure.
homeschooling my kid, for
Fair
sure.
enough. It's becoming all the rage these days, no doubt. But, you know, if you do decide to dovetail your child's upbringing with a public school curriculum, I think this was a really important case that ruled that parents do ultimately have the authority to hold their kids out from lessons that they find objectionable. I'll be honest, I think maybe the justification of it based on religious beliefs, I think it was like, no, whether or not it's grounded in a religious belief, you should be able to hold your children out one way or another. So the Supreme Court got that one right.
But, you know, a right as an American is to, you know, practice a religion or no religion at all. And so this does fall into that.
No, definitely, as was put in stark, you know, in vivid focus when the Puritans decided to, shirk your depressing dark island and come out to the new world. And as we will all be celebrating this weekend, how that turned out so well. No doubt, no doubt. Listen, I am also a shameless Anglophile, a deep respecter of the British. They were a worthy opponent. Like, if you to be the man, you got to beat the man, and we beat the man, and that's why we're the man now.
Was it if you hit the king, you better kill the king?
That doesn't mean the same thing, but sure. Okay. No, to be the Ric Flair would say, to be the man, you got to beat the man, and the British were the men. Flimsy, scrawny ones and pasty, but
really bad teeth. I'm halfway through fixing my teeth, by the way. So
got it. Well,
stay tuned.
I think the camera's going to hide those. So, we are a celebration of us leapfrogging the British and continuing to do all the things that you guys created so much better than you. And I think we just wanted to show us how grateful we are for at least creating the English language, which we have now perfected. So a lot going on in the news cycle. We think the one big beautiful bill, the BBL, is going to be passed. I'm calling it right now. Listen, I will admit it. I probably overshot what I thought it was going to happen in the P Diddy case. I think they did have the evidence, but the prosecutors were just, as my former guest Emily Hagan said, she was at the trial every day, said his lawyers are just better than the government's lawyers. And being that one of the main prosecutors in the P Diddy case was James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey, that is not a surprise at all. They keep on rolling out these flagrant mediocrities. But I think Puffy will go down for a couple years. We should find that out in the next week or two. With that being said, now everybody has to go out and enjoy their 4th of July. It falls on a Friday this year, which was terrible because it doesn't mean that you can get a 4-day weekend, even though I'll find a way to have one regardless.
I know you will.
So, everybody, just before we go, Jade, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Well, Instagram at the Warwick Report, like the hotel. I don't own it, but it sounds nice when I say it.
Yes, it does.
Yes, sir. So find me there for facts over feelings and some offensive videos and the word in it a lot.
I think you rolled out some merch recently about bullying, about getting bullied.
Did I?
You had some shirt that was like, "Oh, I get horny when you bully me," or something like that.
No, that's not even my merch.
Oh, it's not yours.
It's my co-host,
Got
the
it.
bodybuilder. It says, "Don't bully me, I'll come."
Got it.
And I read all my really offensive comments that people were like, "Oh, you should unalive yourself, and your forehead is massive." So I read that, and I just went like, "Oh,
Got it. Imagine being a person who says "unalive yourself" unironically. Incredible.
But my merch is about, just having fun, and there's a couple of July 4th things, like original No King's Day was the 4th of July,
Understood.
1776.
Well,
So.
whether or not it's your merch, if you bully her, she may come. So just keep that in mind. Everybody, this is the Prevailing Narrative. You know where you can find us: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you get your podcast. Follow me on my socials at Matt Bilinsky. That's primarily Twitter and Instagram. Everybody, have a great 4th of July.